Today, I want to talk about the huge margin haircuts that have just happened and how this will cause massive liquidations across the entire market. I also want to talk about how the SEC is finally going after virtue for market manipulation. So stay tuned and let's make some money. And now I'll dive straight in with the key information. So, Busy Brands has tweeted saying the DTC has applied 100% collateral haircuts and assigns no value to all and any securities issued by affiliates of LOC banks effective immediately. So I want to start by reading through this letter and then explain what this letter actually means and how it impacts the wider market and how it impacts AMC. So it says, as done previously and as explained in greater detail in Appendix A below, effective May 2nd, 2023, the DTC will apply a 100% haircut and assign no collateral value, aka a $0 collateral value, to securities that are issued by an affiliate of any lender listed in Table 1 of Appendix A. As a result, participants now have to designate additional securities as collateral, or number 3, submit settlement payments directly to the DTC. And obviously, if they don't have any additional securities to submit as collateral and they can't meet those margin payments, they effectively receive a margin call and part of their portfolio will be liquidated. Now, obviously included in this list is tons and tons of banks, even major banks like JP Morgan and HSBC and everything else in between. So basically any kind of securities, derivatives, share capital equity, bonds, or basically anything associated with any of these major and minor banks is now worth absolutely zero. If any of these hedge funds are holding shares in JP Morgan Chase, it's now worth nothing. If any of these have derivative agreements with Goldman Sachs, all of those are worth zero. The DTCC is literally not accepting anything from any one of these banks as collateral for these hedge funds and other firms. Now, StockSense Frank has tweeted saying that basically a bunch of stocks, mortgages, municipal bonds and other financial objects that the big banks were using as collateral for loans have been given haircuts by the DTCC. But not only that, but any of these hedge funds that were invested into these banks via equity, via derivatives, via bonds or anything else is also a zero value too. And therefore, considering that all of these major banks have just had all of their financial products cut to a zero collateral value rating, it clearly means these risk rating agencies screwed up again. They've obviously been placing low-risk AAA ratings on financial instruments and financial products that are actually of no real value. So as a prime example, where Citadel did hold billions of dollars worth of Goldman Sachs shares, JP Morgan Chase shares, and many other major bank shares, all of those shares have been valued at an absolute zero for collateral requirement purposes. That basically means that Citadel have likely just lost upwards of $5 to $10 billion of margin that they were using to meet margin requirements. And on top of that, we're also seeing an ever-growing list of AMC failed to delivers, where the new April data has just been released and those FTDs are skyrocketing even higher. We can see through the first half of April, the number of FTDs were in the millions every single day, with multiple days in April seeing over 17 and 18 million FTDs in AMC. You can see this is the highest number of FTDs we've seen in the whole of 2023, 2022, and even 2021. Again, this shows these hedge funds and market makers are struggling more and more every single day to reset those FTDs and continue to have them outstanding and growing. They're obviously running out of money that they can use to reset these FTDs because they have to use that money to desperately meet margin requirements. And therefore, right now, they're having to choose between meeting margin requirements and being liquidated or closing out and resetting those FTDs. And I think this goes hand in hand with the growing number of stock halts that shows an increase in market-wide volatility as volume decreases as these hedge funds and market makers panic more and more. StockSense Frank tweeted saying halts on stocks. Today was the second day in a row, aka Friday and today, with over 100 volatility halts on the New York Stock Exchange halt tracking page. He said there was 117 halts on Friday and another 114 today. The last time there were 2 days above 100 was during the January 2021 sneeze, and before that was in 2020 during the pandemic. Frank is basically saying that volatility in the market is increasing and these market makers are struggling to contain this current market volatility because the volume in the market is so low. That low volume is obviously being caused because these hedge funds are desperately trying to meet their margin requirements and therefore aren't going too crazy in the markets and aren't trading every single day. But also when they do trade and it does cause an increase in volatility, these hedge funds are obviously struggling to contain that volatility because they're struggling financially. And again, now these haircuts have been introduced, these hedge funds and market makers are going to struggle to contain this volatility even more, as they now have even less cash to meet margin requirements. And obviously, ultimately, as they're struggling more and more and have less and less cash and experience and create more and more FTDs, it will ultimately lead to liquidations. Not just in hedge funds shorting AMC, but liquidations in other regional banks, potentially liquidations in some major banks, and other liquidations across the wider hedge fund industry. We are going to be seeing more hedge funds going bankrupt over the next few weeks and the next few months as a result. And on top of that, Investor Turf has tweeted saying, breaking news, Virtue Financial is facing a potential SEC enforcement action. This Wall Street Journal article says that Virtue stock fell yesterday after disclosure of potential SEC enforcement action. So if you don't know what an SEC enforcement action notice actually is, it's basically when the SEC have said, Virtue, we found that you're doing something illegal, so please prepare for a lawsuit. Clearly the SEC have finally realised that Virtue is indeed up to no good and need to bring down the hammer. Now, another company that has recently received an SEC enforcement action was Coinbase, obviously for operating an illegal unregistered exchange. A company that also received an enforcement action before that was Bittrex, and they were recently forced to close down their unregistered exchange as well. StockSense Frank also tweeted saying, announced today was that the SEC are potentially going after Virtue Financial, and Virtue also closed their position in TRKA today. He said their aim and their game is to naked short and internalize in the name of liquidity. The all-knowing and divine supreme overlords that are Doug Sifu and Ken Griffin spew pure liquid from their bodies. He said they supply the most envied financial system in the world with overflowing liquid or liquidity that can't be competed with. These market makers, Citadel and Virtue, are so envied or so hated that they're actually banned from operating in some countries. And as Ape News tweeted, he said, furthermore, if Citadel and Virtue can manipulate markets with high-frequency trading, where billions of shares can trade in less than 1/10 of a second, on the flip side, when something arbitrary happens or something wrong happens, aka they make a mistake, it can cost them billions of dollars in less than a second as well. This is obviously exactly what happened during the January and June 2021 sneezes, and exactly what will cause the coming AMC squeeze. When Citadel and Virtue end up making another mistake, it will cause AMC to squeeze, and these hedge funds and market makers will lose billions in just simply seconds. So guys, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always guys, be sure to ding that notification bell, because that way you'll be alerted when I upload a new video. Cheers.